Hello, I hope you're all doing very well and looking forward to this next little talk. We're going to look at chapter 12 of Global Strategic Management, and this is on global innovation. Innovation is a key word these days. You'll use a lot and you'll hear a lot, and it's one of the things that managers are talking about more, looking for, and ideas of innovation. And a lot of it's based on the concept that innovation is one of the really an element that introduces something new or tweaks something old and makes it new, that makes gives you a competitive advantage and differentiates your company's products and services from other people. So it's a bit of a buzzword, but it's also one that's quite applicable in this economy these days, when everybody's looking for something new, something different, some way to make something attractive, that out of something that is less attractive than it used to be. And so innovation is key. So we're going to look at a few elements of innovation and what can help that along in today's talk. First of all, let's look at knowledge. If you look at this, please do call up the slide presentation with this. I think it helps to go along with that, and I refer to the slide numbers you can look at. And again, when the slides are highlighting from the book, like in this section, I pass over a lot of things in the book and I get right to the knowledge part. I'm not going to test anything I don't talk about in these lectures. So it's key to look at these, look at the slides, and also it just makes it more relevant. So you look at slide 2, we're saying that knowledge is the ability to understand and give meaning to facts and information. In the corporate world, knowledge applies not only to techniques and physical sciences, but to all aspects of corporate behavior. You'll see that most companies will spend a great deal of money and time on training. And sometimes the training is ineffective, but that doesn't mean they don't do it. And there are different ways that people train. You can have all these formalized courses, etc., or you can have on-the-job training, and usually there's a mixture of both. You learn a lot from what you're doing now in university, what your training program or the training experience there at the company, external source of, and then you watch people work and they show you things, how to do what they do, where they do it, and all different ways that knowledge is passed. Some people would say, like it says on the slide, that the strength of a global company is their ability to create, combine, and share knowledge across borders. I think that is a lot true. I mean, it depends on it might be an overstatement in some regards, but it's true that highly successful companies have ways and means and processes and really a conscientious effort to pass what is known at one place to another place quickly around the company. In communication, first of all, whenever you do a case study or strategy, or you're looking at doing a consulting work, there's always a communication problem. You'll say, oh, there's a communication problem. Well, there always is. People have communication problems, even though that's what we're made to do. That's how we look at our world, is through communication. There are also a lot of obstacles to communication. And in most times, in most companies, when you look at something, you say, why didn't they just talk it over? And you'll find that the very same people that talk, oh, communication is key, won't communicate. When you see here, we have, for example, in Florida, we have hurricanes all the time. And so during the hurricane, what are you doing? You're just glued to your radio or your phone or your TV as long as the power is on. And you see, what's happening? I need, even though, their last update was the hurricane is 300 miles away, moving at 10 miles an hour, there is no change in the next 10 minutes, however you want to know. So you keep looking, because as it gets closer, it becomes more vital. But with the search for communication is key. I will encourage you, when you're a manager, to communicate to your people. There is a very false view that if I know something, I'm more powerful if I don't share it. I find that usually not the case. Sometimes, obviously, you can't say certain things because they're confidential or it might affect somebody else's career, etc. But I find a lot of times I work on strategic plans for banks. The strategic plan is in place, and the management does not communicate that to all people in the organization. You wonder, why would that be? If everyone is supposed to follow a strategic plan, the plan is what we are doing as a group. Why wouldn't everyone have that front and center on their desk? That would seem to me the most important thing for everyone to have. And yet, management will almost always not share the plan with the workers. So I don't know why that is. I think that again, it's human nature. Sometimes people feel if I know it and you don't, I'm somehow better or above you. But sharing knowledge, I think, is really key. As a manager, if you obviously, I'm not talking about confidential things or things that can disrupt other people or somebody's personnel file, but what you're doing, what we're doing, what the company's doing, what your goals are, how we're intending to get there. As long as you're not, for example, if you're trying to buy another company, you can't tell everybody about that deal because it hasn't happened yet and it may mess up the deal. But you can say that our company's interested in acquisitions and that kind of thing. Anyway, I tend towards communication, and there's always a problem with that, and people always feel I didn't know, I was left in the dark, and they resent that. So try to win the people on your side by communicating more. The 4 types of knowledge: conversion and socialization, the process of sharing. Tacit knowledge is, tacit means like you're teaching it, you're showing it, you're demonstrating it through social interaction, apprenticeship, and observation. That used to be much more common. It used to be, people sat in big rooms and they watched each other, heard each other work. I noticed in my early career there were no cubicles, and you would just hear so much. And you would hear the people that were in the back of the room or other people talking, and you learned a lot just from osmosis almost, through attention to what was going on around you. Once the walls went up, it became less so. Once people start working from home, or working remotely, then it's even less opportunity to learn through the apprenticeship type structure. Externalization, the process of articulating tacit knowledge with explicit concepts through metaphors, pictures, and theoretical formations, and a combination of process where you do a different explicit showing of what and teaching. And you want to internalize that. Every manager will tell you, it just warmed my heart to see my people on whatever level understand our mission statement, understand our values, know exactly what we want to do. They say we rather than they when they're talking about the company. These are the kind of things what you're looking for is an internalization of knowledge. For multinational corporations, you look on the next slide, you have a lot of opportunities there, but also constraints. So obviously, when you're cross-border, you're crossing cultures, languages, all sorts of natural borders between 2 different countries. People can have different experiences. They can live through things differently. They can take learning examples and humor, the attempts at humor differently. Sometimes what you're trying to teach, it just doesn't work, and sometimes the answer is different in different countries. You may find a place where the answer to everything is work harder, and another place where the answer to everything is show more concern for your fellow worker, that kind of thing. So you have to be careful around those cultures and see what rings a bell there and an effective way to teach. I've been in cases where you try to take a training program that we do in the States and you try to migrate it to the UK or to Portugal, something like that, and people say, well, that's too American. When you get behind it, it's exactly the same as what they're doing, but it looks American. Maybe the teacher is American, maybe the way of saying it is too American, but often it's the same. So what you want to do is try to consider those things. How can I reduce that natural obstacle to learning by being a little more sensitive to the culture and the language, etc. A lot of times people don't want to do something that's not been done here. And a lot of times when people move companies, they say, well, at my old company, we did it this way. That gets old really fast. When you want to transfer your knowledge, you have to be careful not to say that. We used to do it that way. Now, you just say, how about this? How we tried this? And try to frame what you're trying to teach in ways that are acceptable to your audience. You want to not reinvent the wheel. That's you see that over and over in companies. They're doing the same thing over and over again in different places, and that leads into the next slide, which is best practice. Best practice is a highly powerful concept of transferring what works the best or works well from one location, market, assembly line, product set, etc., to another. And companies that can do that are effective. And I look at a lot like what we're trying to do here. What this book and what I'm talking about and what in my experience, et cetera, is trying to share best practices with you. Whereas what I'm trying to do is say, look, don't start fresh when you're being faced with these situations when you work for a multinational corporation, but take what's already been done and tons of research in this book experience, things we're drawing from, what we're talking about here, and apply that so that you have best practices. That is basically what best practice is. It's some way to apply what's been done before effectively into the new situation and not go through those same mistakes. You've all heard from older people, your parents, don't make the mistakes I made. Learn from my mistakes, don't make your own. And that's hard for us to do. We like to make our own mistakes. However, in business, it's really, you can get ahead by absorbing the best practices of others. And in a company, what you want to do is transfer those. And there are some things that make it difficult. Ambiguity. Sometimes where you say, this worked really well here, let's try that here. But what is it exactly? What exactly did you do? And it has to be really clear how that occurred, what the background was, and what you're trying to implement. So many times the best practice application does not work, and that's because it's ambiguous and it's not built for the same situation. The situation is a little different from what you thought it was. Sometimes they just don't understand it, and sometimes they don't apply it. And sometimes they can't be, there's difficulty in overcoming the geography, people, language, etc. And sometimes there's just resistance to that. Other times you'll see people that really want it and do it. And as in companies, corporations are very hierarchical. Even the ones that are flat are hierarchical. So what you want to do is win over the top person, win over the business unit head, win over the geography head, win over the CEO of this best practice, have them push it down through the organization. It goes very quickly. In most companies, things brought in at lower levels take by a factor of 10 times longer to implement than when it comes down from the top. So if you have a really good idea, you want to pass it around, get to the top people, win them over, and have them distribute accordingly. Spreading knowledge. Again, there are different ways to do that. Again, there are notice on. Look at the next slide. There are business units, team leaders. You want to have. What it's basically saying here is that relationships help when you want to pass knowledge along, and I think that's extremely true. Anyone who, if you want to learn from somebody, or you want to teach somebody, or you're able to do that, comes a lot from the relationship that you've built of trust, respect, if they want the best for you, etc. So. And also there's the facilities. Some companies make it really easy to learn. They've got great websites for that. The training is very good. They have a mentorship program. They have groups that meet together to share knowledge. It's institutionalized. Most companies are not that way, but some companies are. And you have to think about, do I like that? A learning organization? Right now, most of you would say, I want to be a lifelong learner, and that's probably true, and it's necessary. So you might look for companies that are a little more involved with the ongoing process of learning and transferring knowledge, and you like that. And these different things help. Some team leaders are really good at sharing knowledge, really good at helping you, and they're more like coaches. And I like that way of approaching your business. And others are less so. So sometimes companies do seminars, workshops, etc. They might send you to places to learn, but all these different ways are used to spread knowledge around companies. They work and don't work depending. I find training to be highly suspect. I've been a trainer. I like training. I'm teaching this now, but often it isn't effective. I like to think, you really want to check out what you're sending your people to, what you're attending yourself, and have some true applicability to what you want to do in your workplace so that you can use what you're doing. And I think that's the key thing. So it takes some research to get that right. Let's look at intellectual property rights for a bit. You see there are two, on the next slide, there are two YouTube videos I suggest you click on, and you'll see that in those you'll see some talk about industrial espionage, etc. And I think that we live in a much different world from just in recent past in terms of the ability and willingness for companies to try to understand what you're doing, what other companies are doing. So you'll see in the one video that a lot that in U.S. Companies don't use certain hotels. The government doesn't use certain hotels because they are highly aware that they're quote bugged, that they're being monitored when they go there. Certain countries have no real problem with stealing intellectual property rights. They do everything they can to do that, and it's of course highly profitable if you can steal somebody's technology and use it. So when you have the intellectual property rights, they cover various things like patents, trademarks, copyright, industrial design, trade secrets, and genetic codes. Now, the infringement, and again, you see this in China and other places all the time, that they just don't think it's a crime to steal somebody's idea. They think it's doing you're just taking it so you can make money. The West and U.S. particularly is different about that, and you see our government recently has worked much harder to protect intellectual property rights of its own companies that go into these markets. However, the infringement there on patency is reverse engineering. You buy something, take it apart, and make it. Trademarks. If you walk around the streets of Hong Kong and you want to buy a Gucci belt or a Piaget watch or anything, you can find it on the street or have somebody make it for you really quickly, and it'll look exactly the same as what you can get anything in these places for any brand, and you'll be it's much cheaper, but it'll be exactly the same. Often when I worked a lot with in Mexico with producers there, and some big companies make jeans. All the jeans they make cost them about $8 to make, and they're every one you would ever buy. So they sell them for between $15 and $500 here in the States, but they all cost $8. So that company making whatever popular jeans are these days, on the side they're doing that with a contract with the U.S. distributor and the patent holder and the brand owner, etc. However, they know how to make it. So of course there's going to be on the side, there's going to be a gigantic business of them making the same exact jeans with the same brand, etc., and selling them themselves through other distribution networks, even if it's only in Mexico. It's going to happen. So those are kind of things that that happen all too frequently, and a part of the taking of your intellectual property rights and et cetera. Industrial designs, one of the big problems with having joint ventures in countries is that once you're there, your joint venture partner knows everything about everything. Some companies will be very clever, and they'll distribute different parts of production processes in different plants and then assemble it somewhere else. So no one area knows everything, but that's not easy to do. But some companies resort to that. But basically, once you have a joint venture, especially on the industrial manufacturing side, your partner's going to know what you do, and you're subject to this. And finally, trade secrets. People. If people work at a different place and you hire them, then you know what they know. They may sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they probably do, but that runs out, or they just don't honor it, or maybe they've been dissatisfied where they were, and they're happy to go to a new company and spill their guts. So, or maybe they've even been sent there to work for a while and come back and tell. So it's very difficult to maintain the intellectual property rights, and I think even more so in this digital age, and also the overall culture of less loyalty is clear in these days, both ways. The companies are not very loyal to their employees. Employees, because of that, are less loyal to their companies. So the movement around and sharing secrets, and it may not be stealing secrets, but it's very close, occurs. So it's difficult to maintain your intellectual property rights. To protect that, you'll have employees, you'll restrict disclosure, you'll have them sign things. Every time when you start a company, you're going to be signing non-disclosure agreements. You want to educate them. You want to help them learn how not. And a lot of when I worked for Price Waterhouse for a while, and when your laptop was gold, and they had many laptops stolen per year because people would see your Price Waterhouse bag and realize that person inside that bag is a PC, a laptop that's got so much in it, it's unbelievable. So a major part of our training was how to secure your laptop, how to lock it up, and in fact, you had to lock it up when you were at work in your own office building. You had to lock it to your desk, and if you didn't, someone would come around and from security would take it, and you had to go and get it back, and that event was monitored and noted in your file. So everywhere you were, you had to protect that, and it's important. That was a key thing. That laptop was gold for somebody who stole it. So You have a lot of things like that. But be really careful. Most companies will encrypt what you do. Like if you do something at work and you want to work on a home, you can't because it's encrypted. But all sorts of things will be protecting that, and you'll see more and more. Of course, always ways around things. But basically, what you want to do is make sure your employees are really well aware of what they can and cannot do, and that you will enforce any behavior to the contrary. Okay, I think that's it. I think the main thing there are those elements we covered, and I think you'll see in almost every corporation and every company this awareness of the communication as an issue, awareness of training as an issue, and you want to try to probably find a company where it's at the forefront, that you can continue to learn and be well trained and feel good about what you're doing, and work for a company that doesn't try to hold back information from you and lets you in on what's going on. And then, again, just keep in mind the property rights issues, how to protect that, how to avoid, and for yourself, be careful with how you manage your company's secrets. Be careful who you talk to, be careful how you do. Don't lose your phone, don't lose your computer, and all that. And when you sign something like that, it's valid. It means something. So, of course, do everything you can to protect what your company is doing. Remember, you're an employee; they pay you. When they pay you, everything that's done within those walls of work and everything you do is related to work is theirs. It's not yours. It's theirs. So honor that, respect that, and I think you'll do well. All right. Thanks a lot.